We begin today the Gemara on Daf Mem Zayin Amud Aleph. The first word on the line, Kablan. It's the middle of a Braisa. The Gemara before brought a Simin, a Malek. The Braisa is speaking about the halachas of a person saying Eidos and explaining that in these four cases that it's possible that it looks like you're a Negei Be'edus, that you're saying it with a gain, with a bias, but really you're not Negei Be'edus and your Eidos is kosher. Okay, so right before this, the Braisa brought the case of a Orev that says Eidos for a loive, a guarantor, he's saying Eidos for the benefit of a borrower. So it looks like that is Negei Be'edus. If someone's trying to take away the property from a borrower, so the guarantor now, the Orev, is afraid that when the lender comes to collect his loan, the loive, the borrower, will not be able to pay, and now the guarantor will have to pay. So in such a case, he can't testify on behalf of the borrower. The Gemara said that the Braisa explained before that if the borrower has another property, so then the guarantor is not gaining by testifying for the loive, because he anyways has another property to pay from. Now the Gemara brings another case, Kablan, a person that's a Orev Kablan. Orev Kablan is someone that is also a guarantor for a loan, but it's different. The way that Rashbam describes it is that this is a guarantor that actually gets the money from the lender and then he gives it to the borrower to use the money. In such a case, the lender can come to the Kablan to collect the loan just like he can go to the borrower himself. By an Orev, you go to the borrower, that is, to collect the loan. If the borrower doesn't have money, then you go to the Orev. But by a Kablan, the lender can go to either one, to the borrower or to the Kablan. Other Mefarshim say that the din of Orev Kablan is not only in a case where the Kablan actually took the money of the loan first and then gave it to the borrower, but even without that. If this was the way he accepted upon himself as an Orev Kablan, even without taking the money, but that the lender can come to him to collect the loan as much as he can come to the loive, then that's what's called an Orev Kablan. So now, this case of the Kablan, Omri law, there are those that say, made, that he could testify on behalf of the loive. If the loive has a property and someone's trying to take it away from him, he can testify to help him to keep the property. V'amri law, others say, Eine made, that he cannot testify on his behalf. So the Gemara explains both opinions. Amri law meye, there are those that say that he could testify on behalf of the loive, ka'arev dami, because it's the same like the arev. Just like we said before regarding the arev, in a case where the borrower has another property anyways to pay the loan from. So if you're testifying for one property, you're not making it any better for yourself. The lender anyways has a different property to collect from. The same with Orev Kablan. Testifying for the loive in such a situation is not changing anything for you. But V'amri law, there are others that say, that you cannot testify for the borrower, even in a case where there's another property. Because the nichale, the laheve biyade tarvayu. There could be a case where it's better for the Kablan that the loive should have in his possession two properties. The chiyasi balchayiv, because then when the balchayiv comes, the boy shakel, the one that he wants, he'll go and take. So the Rashbam explains what could be one of the cases where a Orev Kablan could gain by testifying on behalf of the loive, in a case where the property that the Kablan has is a beinonus property. Usually, a lender has the right to collect for his loan a beinonus property, which is an average quality of a property. There's a ziburis property, which is low quality, and there's a idis property, which is top quality. So the top quality, a lender cannot collect. So if you have a property that the Orev Kablan has, the beinonus property. So that's really a property that the lender can come and collect. If the loive himself has just one other property, which is ziburis, it's a low quality, so the lender is not interested in collecting from there. But now if the second property that's going to be taken away from the loive is a beinonus property, so then if the Orev Kablan is not going to testify on behalf of the loive, and now the loive is going to be left with a ziburis property, so then what's going to happen? The malva is going to come to him to collect the beinonus property. Why should he take the ziburis property if he can take the beinonus property from the Orev Kablan? So in such a case, if the Orev Kablan is testifying on behalf of the loive that he should be able to keep his beinonus property, he's doing it with a bias. He's gaining himself that the malva should not come to him to take the beinonus property, rather he'll go to the loive. That's specifically b'negei to Orev Kablan. The Rashbam though points out that it doesn't apply by a regular Orev. By a regular Orev, you could never go to the guarantor unless the loive has nothing. So if the loive would have a ziburis property and the Orev Kablan has a beinonus property, the malva could only go to the loiva himself, even though it's a zibur's property, because you don't go to a orev, a regular orev, unless the loiva himself has nothing. So Rabbi Yochanan said, this is going back to the halach of the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that a craftsman, let's say a tailor that has a garment in his possession, cannot claim that it's his and prove it by the fact that he has it. Chazakeh. Uman ein le chazakeh. So the craftsman, like it said in the Mishnah, has no chazakeh, but Ben Uman, the son of a craftsman, yesh le chazakeh. He does have a chazakeh. Ares ein le chazakeh. The same, a sharecropper we learned in the Mishnah does not have a chazakeh. He has the rights to the produce in the field. The Gemara explained before, we're talking about a sharecropper that takes the entire produce for 2 or 3 years straight. So the fact that he's there for that amount of time doesn't prove anything. So he has no chazakeh. Ben Ares, however, the son of this sharecropper, if he's occupying the field for 3 years, yesh le chazakeh. He does have a chazakeh. Gazlan, when it comes to a thief, uben Gazlan, and even the son of the thief, elem chazakeh. By both of them, it doesn't make a difference. There won't be any chazakeh. The Gemara will soon explain how we define a Gazlan. Ben benoishal Gazlan, if it's the grandson of a Gazlan, then yesh le chazakeh. Then he could establish a chazakeh by being in his property for 3 years. Okay, so the Gemara now explains what Rabbi Yochanan said here. We're making a distinction between a uman and a aris that has no chazakeh, but the son does, and by a gazlan, where the gazlan himself has no chazakeh, but the son of the gazlan does. Or actually, sorry, the son of the gazlan in this case is the same like the gazlan himself, and also does not have a chazakeh. Hey, chidami. So the question is, what is the case here? If the case here is that the son, whether the son of the uman, the son of the aris, or the son of the gazlan, their taina is that it's mine because we got it from our father, we inherited it from our father. Our father bought it. So then afilu hanach nami loy. So then even by the son of the craftsman or the sharecropper, they should also have no chazakah, because they're no different than the father themselves. They're just saying that we got it from our father, and the father can't establish any chazakah. But on the other hand, if the son, his claim is not that he inherited from the father, the son is claiming separately, I bought it from you. His own taina, that I had nothing to do with my father. So then afilu ben gazlan nami loy. So then even by the case of the son of a the loy goes afterwards. Afilu ben gazlan nami. So even the son of the gazlan, the same halacha should apply, that he should have a chazakah. What is it his fault that his father is a gazlan? If he claims himself that he bought it, so he bought it. Answers the Gemara, loy tzricha. The only case where that we need what Rabbi Yochanan said is the following: the ka'amri edim, when edim come and tell us b'fanenu hoydoloi, that in front of us we heard this owner that's not claiming that it's his, that he admitted that he sold it. So the case over here really is that the children that we're talking about here are saying that we got it from our father. So even though if they got it from their father, there should be no chazakeh. But when it said that the son has a chazakeh, it's because there are edim that said that we heard that the seller admitted that he sold it to them. So now, why by a gazlan does that hidas baldin not work? Hanoch, when it comes to the others, the son of the craftsman, the son of the sharecropper, so we can say that it's true. We have the hidas baldin, and we have the son that says he bought it, so it's his. But when it comes to the son of the gazlan, that's different, because alfagav the oidi, even if we have edim that this person admitted that he sold it, loy me'amen. The fact that he admitted this doesn't help. They're not believed not to say that they bought it. Why not? Because Rav Kahana, as Rav Kahana said about a gazlan, Rav Kahana says, ilav the oidile havemamtile olochamre l'shachfar. When you're dealing with a gazlan, if you're not going to admit to him that he sold it to you, then he'll take you and your donkey and he'll report you, or he'll give you over to the authorities. Basically, you were forced to be maida. So the fact that you were maida doesn't prove anything. That's why a gazlan or the son of a gazlan that's saying the taina that I got it from my father, it's and even if you have the edim that there's a das baldin, it doesn't help anything. Now the Rashbam explains that according to this pshat that the Gemara says now, so then l'chayre the same should apply actually to the craftsman or the sharecropper himself. We said that a uman, a artist, does not have a chazakah, but in a case where this person that was the owner before is maida clearly that they bought it from him, for sure there should be a chazakah. So why is the Braisa making a distinction between the artist or the son of the artist, the uman or the son of the uman? There's a clear das baldin. Well, that's what it seems like. Rabbi Yochanan is saying, Oris ein lechazakeh. Ben Oris lechazakeh. Uman, Ben Uman. What's the reason for this distinction? So the Rashbam says that you'll have to say that when it says Uman ein lechazakeh and Oris ein lechazakeh, it's not in a case where there's a Eidos Baldin. There's no Eidos Baldin. Stam, in a regular case, a sharecropper or a craftsman does not have a chazakeh. Then when it talks about the Ben, there the Braisa or Rabbi Yochanan wants to make a distinction between the Ben of the Uman and the Oris and the Ben of the Gazlan. There, that distinction only applies in a different case. When there's Eidos Baldin, and there he was teaching that Eidos Baldin works for a Ben Uman and Ben Oris, but it doesn't work for a Ben Gazlan because Eidos Baldin, when you're dealing with a Gazlan, is worthless. That's Rashbam's pshat. Many other Rishonim, Taisus over here says that the Girs in the Gemara is different. You're not guided in the Gemara that the case here is that we have Eidim, that there was a Eidos Baldin here. That's the Girs we had in our Gemara. There's Eidim. That the Ka'amri Eidim b'fneinu Haida. Taisus says Kagoin the Ka'ama b'fneinu Haida that this is what the Ben Oris or the Ben Uman is claiming without Eidim. He's coming and saying that it's mine because you sold it to me, or you were Maida that you sold it to my father. Rather, he comes and says it's mine. I inherited it to my father, and you were Maida to me that you sold it to my father. But not that there's Eidim on this. It's on that case that the Gemara is saying that by the Ben Oris and by the Ben Uman that they're going to be believed, and by the Ben Gazlan not. And over here by the Ben Uman and the Ben Oris we say that they're believed. He could have just said, I bought it directly from you, and then he would have been believed. That's only by the son of the Uman or the son of the Oris. The Oris himself, though, and the Uman himself is not believed to say that. The Uman is not believed to say, I bought it directly from you, because, as we learned, the Uman and the Oris have no chazakeh. That's the Girsa of Taisus and most Rishonim in our Gemara. Sagt the Gemara weiter, and we had now the case of the grandson of the Gazlan. So before, Rabbi Yochanan said that the grandson of the Gazlan does have a chazakeh. Amar Rave, so Rave says, Pa'amim, it could be times, Shafila ben benoishal Gazlan, that the grandson of the Gazlan, Nami ein lechazakeh, will also not have a chazakeh. Hey Chidami, when is that? If he comes and says that I got this, I inherited it, this property from my grandfather. Usually we say that the grandson has a chazakeh because the grandson is saying, I inherited it from my father. Where did his father get it from? Did his father get it from his father, which was a Gazlan? Or did he get it from somewhere else? So that is halach of Tanina. When you're a Yiddish, Bezim will taina for you that your father had it legitimately. But if your taina, if the grandson's taina is that I inherited this field from my grandfather, the grandfather is a Gazlan. So in this case, even by the grandson, he won't have a chazakeh. That's the Girsa in our Gemara. The Rashbam has a different Girsa. The Rashbam is guided in the Gemara. Pamim shafilu ben Gazlan yesh lechazakeh. We said before the son of a Gazlan does not have a chazakeh because the Gazlan is saying that he got it from his father. But there could be times where the son of the Gazlan will have a chazakeh, and that's in a case like the Gemara says when he says that I got it from my grandfather. The son of the Gazlan says, this field I didn't get from my father. This field I got from my grandfather. So if he said he inherited it from his grandfather, then Bezin will taina that his grandfather had it legitimately, and it'll be a good chazakeh. So now the question here, the Gemara continues and says, how do we define this Gazlan we're talking about here? Heichi, one second. Heichi dami Gazlan. What exactly is the case here that we define this person as a Gazlan? Rabbi Yochanan says, that we know that this person was a Gazlan for this property. Meaning, even if we don't know right now that he stole it, but we know that in the past he was caught stealing this property, he was kicked out, and he came back. We know that he had his eyes and he was a Gazlan already in the past on this property. So therefore now, if he or his son claim that he bought it, we don't trust them. But Rav Chisda says, another example, the base Pliny Shahargin Nefashis. It's like this family that they kill people. We know that this is a foul iske moment for money matters. We know that they're bandits and they kill, and so therefore, when they claim that they bought something, we can't trust them because they threaten people. So therefore, even if someone comes and admits that he sold it to you, they're not trusted. Tana Rabbanan, in a Brais we learned, Uman ein lechazakeh, a craftsman cannot claim chazakeh in something he has in his possession. However, Yarad Nusai, if he gave up his job, for example, he's not a tailor anymore, and now he has a garment in his possession, so yesh lechazakeh. Now he does have a chazakeh. Oris ein lechazakeh, a sharecropper has no chazakeh, but Yarad Marisusai, if he's not a sharecropper anymore on this property, and now he occupies it for 3 years, yesh lechazakeh, there's a chazakeh for him. Ben shecholak, A son that's separated from his father, say the son went and got married, he's not living in his father's house anymore. Or v'isha shenis garsha, or a woman that was divorced. So before in the Mishnah it said that a son and a father, they can't have a chazaka one on the other's property because they help each other, they live together. Or a husband and a wife, the husband can't have a chazaka in his wife's properties because it's nichse milug, that he eats the fruits from it. Or the wife can't have a chazaka in the husband's properties because he's supposed to feed her, so she eats from his property. But if she's divorced, so then they're like anybody else. That's the Braisa. So the Gemara asks, the fact the Braisa says that a son that separates and is got married, so that there's a chazake itzrich. That's something that the Braisa had to teach me. So because I would still think to say that av leben the bachirat, a father and a son, the fact that the father allowed his son to be there for 3 years, it's no sign that he bought it. The father just allowed his son, his own son, to be there, even though he's already living separately and married. But I would think that it's no proof. Kamash Milan Deloy. So it tells me here that no, that's not the case. Once he's married and he's living separately, if he's occupying the property for 3 years, it's proof that his father sold it to him. Elo Yishashan is Garsha, but a woman that's divorced, Pshita. Obviously, if she's divorced, there's no reason to say that there should be no chazaka between her and her ex-husband on this property. They have nothing to do with each other anymore. Answers the Gemara, no, the chiddush over here is in the following case. B'mugureshes, ve'ein mugureshes. In a case where she's divorced and not divorced, in other words, it's a suffix gedushin. The typical case is what we learned in Gittin, when a get is thrown to her, and it's a suffix if it was closer to her or closer to him. And now what's the halach in such a case? As Rab Zayda is taught, the Amar Rab Zayda, Amar Rab Yirmiyah Ba'abba, Amar Shmuel, Kol Mokim Shomri Chachamim, Mugereshes, Ve'ena Mugereshes. Anytime Chachamim say that there's a suffix of a divorce, by law, Chayiv Muzaynesel. The husband still has to feed this woman that might be his wife. So therefore, since he's still Chayiv to feed her, so the fact that this wife of his sort of suffix wife is occupying this property, you could say is still no proof that she has a chazakah, because he's still obligated to feed her. So maybe that's why she's occupying this property. So therefore, the chiddush over here is that Rashbam explains it's not going to it's going to be a chazakah. We're not going to say that maybe she's there because he's feeding her, because a husband that has to feed this kind of wife that he's trying to divorce, or a suffix wife, he doesn't allow her to sit on his property. He's just going to give her the most meager portion or whatever he can to get away with feeding her. The fact that she's sitting in his property for 3 years will be a raya that it's her chazakah. Huh?
What does he have from that?
From what? From
that.
Yeah, okay. But for some reason, it didn't, the time schlepped us, and this is what happened. It was a suffigation. Omar Rav Nachman said, Omar li Huna. Huna told me, this is Rav Huna, which was Rav Nachman's friend. Kulon, all of the cases that we just mentioned here in the Mishnah, that there's no raya with a chazakah, whether it's the aris or the gazlan and so on, sheviu raya, so it's actually not the gazlan, as we'll see. All of them that brought a raya that the field is theirs, right? So till we were talking about if they occupied the field for 3 years and they want to claim based on that's this proof for ownership. So that's not a raya. But if they actually brought a real raya, if they brought Eidim, that this person was mighty that he sold me the property, or you brought a shtar that he sold the property. So raya so raya, it's a good raya. And we give the field into their hands. However, Gazlan shehevi raya, a Gazlan that brings a raya that this property was sold to him, whether the owner admitted that he sold it, or there's a shtar that he sold it, ein rayasei raya. In such a case, the fact that he admitted is that he sold it, the fact that he admitted that, it can even aid him that he sold it, or that he admitted that he sold it, but it's not going to be a raya. And they will not be able to keep this field. Okay, the reason why I stopped a second is because here there's an important point that the Rashbam makes, is that there's no eidim that there was payment. But there's eidim that he admitted that he gave it as a gift, or even that he admitted that he sold it, but the eidim never saw that it was paid for. Okay, because as we'll see soon, Rav Huna's shitta is, in a case where a person is forced to sell something, the sale goes through, even though it was against your will. It doesn't matter. But once you paid, the sale goes through. But what we're talking about over here is that there's a raya, whether even with a document that says that it was sold to you. But Adam never saw the money, the actual money here. So in such a case, that raya that it was admitted to is not a raya. Like we already said before, when you admit by a gazlan, it doesn't prove anything. It's because you're afraid of the gazlan, and that's why you admit it. So the Gemara asks on this, what was the chiddush over here of what Rav Huna said? Tanina, we learned this already in a Mishnah, that when you admit by a case of when a Gazlan admits, when you admit to a Gazlan, that is, it's not raya at all. The Mishnah says in Gittin, Lokach misekrikin. If a person bought a property from a guy which is a sekrikin, who are these sekrikin? The sekrikin was, Rashi brings here the whole history, Rashbam rather, brings here the whole history in the time of the Churban, that there was a time period where the Goyim were very wild and they were forcing Yidden to give them their properties, even against their will, and they threatened to kill them. And this is a time period where Rashi says that the Yidden knew that they have a sort of a chance to get the property back. If they go to court and they prove that the guy stole it from them, they'll be able to get it back. That's the time period we're talking about. Rashbam brings there was another time period before that the Romans made a decree that the Goyim should kill Yidden, and in such a case, when the property is taken away from you, then that's it, it's gone. You gave it up. You're not miyayish or whatever. You sold it. You're not going to get it back. But over here by this sekrikin though, we're talking about a case where these Goyim would come and take away. They would threaten Yidden and take away their properties. So you bought this property from this sekrikin. And then and then you also go and buy it from the balabas.
Different one.
No, from the real owner, the original owner of the property, who the sekrikin stole it from. It doesn't matter. It doesn't help. Mekhoy batal. The whole sale, the whole thing is batal. Why is it all batal? Because the fact that this balabas agreed to sell it to you. Why did he agree? Because he's afraid of the sekrikin. That's why. But it's not a real sale, so the whole thing is batal. That's the halach of the Mishnah. So it's the exact same point that Rav Huna said, that when a person admits that I sold this property and it's a gazlan that he's dealing with, admitting doesn't help. The same thing over here regarding this person that buys from a sekrikin and then later he buys from the balabais, that it doesn't help. So definitely in our case where you're admitting directly to the sekrikin, admitting directly to dealing with a gazlan, it's not going to help. So the Gemara explains, Rav Huna was saying a bigger chiddush. Rav Huna here was coming to say different than Rav's explanation for that Mishnah in Gittin. Because Rav said, Lo Yishanu, that whole din of the Mishnah there, if you bought it first from a sekrikin, then you bought it from the original owner from this field, and we said it's worthless, so that's only Ela the Amalei Lechazekakni. When you went to the owner, and the owner gave you permission to go and buy, and you have Aiden for that he gave you permission to go and buy, that's worthless. Because that, we say, that the balabas only did it because he felt under pressure from the sekrikin. But if the case is that the owner that you went to wrote a shtar that I'm selling you the property, then you will acquire the property. That's what Rav holds, because just because he's afraid of the sekrikin, it's a reason why he'll tell you, go and buy it, I allow you to buy it. But he's not going to go so far and write a shtar. The fact that he wrote a shtar is already a proof that he actually is agreeing to sell it to you. But so here Rav Huna came to say that I disagree with Rav. Kamash Malon, Kiddush Shmuel. What Rav Huna was saying here was that he's holding like what Shmuel says. The Shmuel said, Af b'shtar, even when you're dealing with a gazlan, even when you have a shtar, you're still not going to be kaina. So if you bought it from the sekrikin and then the balabas gives you a shtar that he's selling you the property, it doesn't help. He only wrote the shtar because he's afraid of the sekrikin. And unless the owner not only writes a shtar, but he writes in the shtar very clearly that I take responsibility. If anyone takes it away from you, I'm guaranteeing it. Why is he writing it so far? The fact that he's writing even with achrayis nechasim, that shows that he wanted and he was serious to sell it. That was the chiddush here of Rav Huna. Okay, now again, as I mentioned, to clarify an important point here, this is all Rav Huna's opinion, and this is all in a situation where there's whether Haidah, Balpeh, or even with a shtar, according to Rav Huna or Shmuel, but we have no eidus that there was money paid for this acquisition. If there was money paid, as we'll see soon, according to Rav Huna, then even if it was by force, the sale takes effect. But now, the Gemara brings another opinion, which is Rav Bevoy. Rav Bevoy holds that even when there's money paid, but if it's by force, it's still not a sale. Rav Bevoy, Messiah Mishmei, the Rav Nachman, he would say in the name of Rav Nachman that argued with Rav Huna, Karka Einloi, Avul Mois Yeshloi. That when you have Edim and they said, we saw that he gave money, so then because it was by force, the sale will not be in effect. You're going to have to return the Karka and you're going to get back your money. So here we see that Rav Nachman himself, Rav Bevoy said that Rav Nachman himself held that even when someone is forced to sell a property, and he paid for it, but the sale doesn't take effect. When is this the case that you give back the karka and you get back your money? That in front of us we saw that he gave him money for this field. But if all Edom say is that we saw in front of us that he was maida, that he sold his property, then lie. So then that Haidas Baldin is worthless. As we brought before already, as Rav Kahana said, the Omar, if he's not going to be maida, then this Gazlan is going to take this person with his donkey and give him over to the authorities. So the Haidas Baldin is worthless. Okay, but now here the Gemara brings the continuation from what Rav Huna's own shitta is. Omar Rav Huna said, Tal Yuv Izavin, if a person is hung, or you in any way that you force a person, and because of by force he sells a property, and we know that he got paid for this, zvine, even if it was by force, but once he got paid, the sale takes effect. My time, what's the reason for this? Okay, so the Gemara is going to go through here a whole long shakal v'tarya to explain the basis of Rav Huna. Let's see. Okay, we're going to I'll try to finish the scene over here on the next element. So first the Gemara says, reason is because called a mazvininish, you can say that anytime a person sells a property, ilav the honest, if not that he was forced, that he needed cash, or there was something that he was under pressure, lev a mazvin, he wouldn't be selling it. And nevertheless, anytime a person sells, the sale takes effect, even though he's not selling it wholeheartedly. It doesn't matter. He needs to sell, and he's selling, and the sale takes effect. So the same thing we say here, if there's a person that's coming and forcing you to sell, so you're getting money and therefore the sale takes effect. So the Gemara says, how can you compare? How can you compare when a person has his own pressure, he needs cash, and he decides, even if not wholeheartedly to sell, that over there takes effect, to a case where there's a gazlan that's coming and forcing you to sell. Over here, maybe he doesn't want to sell and the sale does not take effect. Elo, so the Gemara tries another explanation. Kedetanya, as we learned in the Braise, where it speaks about a carbon. The pasuk says Yakriv Vaisai. The extra pasuk that says you should bring the carbon, it already says before Zachatamim Yakrivanu. What does this extra pasuk teach me? Malamed, what it teaches is Shekaifen Vaisai, that we force a person to bring a carbon that he's obligated to bring. Now Yachal Balkarchai, I would think that you bring a carbon even against your will. Talmud Laima L'Ritzainai. The pasuk says no, that it should be brought L'Ritzainai L'Fnei Hashem, with his agreement. What does this mean? Hakeitzat. You force him, you hit him, until he's ready to say, yes, I agree. And once he says, I agree, even though it was because of his being hit and forced, we consider that to be an agreement, and the carbon is called L'Ritzainai. So the Gemara wants to compare and say, in our case, the same thing. Tell you, if you force a person to sell, and because of the pressure, he agrees to sell, but once he agrees, the sale takes effect. But the Gemara says you can't compare. Vidilme, Shani also, maybe there it's different. The Nichale, that have it like kapare. In that case, the reason why the person is saying, yes, I agree, is because that's his true will. He wants to have a kapara of his carbon. Elamai, he had other things that didn't allow him to reveal that true will. This is the famous point that the Rambam says, when you force a person that he really wants to do what the Eibishter wants. Elamai, yitzrei onsei, there's external things that are not allowing him, but once you force him, the true person, the true mitzias of the person comes out, and that's his true will. But you can't say that regarding a sale. The Gemara says, maybe we could learn from the Seifa of that Braise. There it says, a similar halacha applies by a get, where there are certain cases where the Bezdin sees that this wife can't live with this husband, so the Bezdin forces this man to give a get until he agrees and says, yes, I'm willing to give the get. So here, we're not talking about an issue of kapara, and the person says, yes, I agree, and we consider it to be b'rotzen, a get must be b'rotzen, so we can apply the same thing by a sale, that once he says yes, even though it was because he was forced, that's considered to be a yes, and therefore the sale takes effect. But again, the Gemara says, "V'dil mishani asam." There, it's different. The mitzvah lishmaya divrei chachamim. It's a case that chachamim instituted that he should be forced to give the get, and therefore, when he says yes, it's again expressing his true will that he wants to listen to what the chachamim want. That doesn't apply here to a sale. Hello. So the Gemara concludes, svarahu. What Rav Huna said was his own svara. What was his svara? Agavoin say, now that the person was forced, he decides that he wants to sell. He makes up his mind, you know what, just easier, let me get this over with and let me sell. The way that Rashbam puts it is, there are two reasons here to say that his decision to sell was a decision to sell. Number one, he wants to get rid of the Yisurim, that he's being forced to sell, and number two, he's getting paid. He's getting money. So the fact that he's getting money and he's not losing anything. So and also he's not going to have the Yisurim. So Tolyu of Izavin, according to Rav Huna, the sale will be in effect. But as I pointed out before, Rav Nachman, Rav Bava said, Rav Nachman disagreed. Rav Nachman said even if there's Edom that you paid, the sale is not in effect. You have to give back the karka.